Okay, part two. All right, so we just talked about a gerund as a subject. Now, a gerund is a direct and an indirect object. Okay, these are similar, obviously, because you have to have an action verb for both of these. So, y'all, think about what you already know about a direct and indirect object. They both have to have action verbs before them, right? And an indirect object cannot stand alone, but a direct object can. So, meaning if you have an indirect object, then you should also have a direct object. All right. So type this out for me. It can be gerund can be a direct object, and direct objects come after action verbs. So look at this example sentence. The French people make visiting France a pleasure. Okay, here are the things I notice. I notice that make can be a verb, and I notice that visiting can be a verb. All right. Now, make is my action verb. I can tell that because what are the French people doing? They make. That's an action. So that makes visiting a verbal. Now I have to decide, is it a participle or is it a gerund? Well, participle is an adjective, and it's not describing anything. So that means it's acting as a noun. So now, or a gerund. So now I have to decide what type of gerund is it. Well, since make is an action verb, then that may, and I don't have an indirect object, make is a direct object. Make what? Visiting France a pleasure. Okay, so that's a direct object. Now look at indirect object. Indirect objects come before direct objects, and they also come after action verbs. Mr. Mendoza's lecture gave traveling a new dimension. All right, a couple things I noticed about this. Gave can be a verb, traveling can be a verb. So what is the lecture doing? It gave. So that makes gave my action. Okay? That makes traveling a verbal. So again, it's either going to be a participle or a gerund because it ends with ing. It's not describing anything. I see another noun right here, dimension. So gave what? Traveling a new dimension. Since traveling comes first, that's an indirect object. Dimension is my direct object. So traveling is a gerund functioning as an indirect object. Okay, predicate nominative. I think this one is pretty easy. Again, I might be biased because I'm the teacher, but I think it's pretty easy. You already know what a predicate nominative is. It is a noun or a pronoun that comes after a linking verb, and it renames your subject. It doesn't describe your subject, it renames it. Okay, adjectives describe. Nouns do not. So if you have a gerund functioning as a predicate nominative, you're going to have an ing word that is the form of a verb, and it's renaming your subject, and it comes after a linking verb. So my dad's favorite activity is fishing. All right, my subject in this sentence is activity, right? Is a linking verb. Fishing ends with an ing. Is my verb, my main verb in the sentence. So fishing is not a verb, it's a verbal. So it is acting as a predicate nominative because it's renaming what your dad's favorite activity is. It ends with an ing, so that is a gerund functioning as a predicate nominative. Now look at this example. What if I said, my dad is fishing? Let's talk about how this is different. In this sentence, dad is your subject. Is a linking verb. Fishing is a verbal. Oh, fishing could be a verbal because it ends with ing. So we have to decide what it's doing. Now, if you look closely, is actually not being a linking verb. It's being a helping verb because fishing is being an action verb. Here's how you can figure that out. Dad is your subject. What is your dad doing? He is fishing. So is fishing is a verb phrase. We know that fishing is not functioning as a noun because fishing is not renaming dad. That's what you're doing. That's what your dad is doing, not what your dad is. Okay. So that fishing is not a verbal. It is just a verb. Okay. Now look at this one. I think this one's pretty easy too. We talk about prepositional phrases all the time. So a gerund can be an object of a preposition. Remember, the last word in a prepositional phrase is a noun or a pronoun, which is the object of your preposition. So guys, if you have a preposition, and at the end of that prepositional phrase, you have an ing word, guess what? It's probably a gerund. His dog showed signs of careful training. Of is a preposition. Training ends with an ing. So that means that it's either going to be a participle or a gerund. So I know it's not a participle because it's not describing anything. Careful is the describing word. Training is the end of the prepositional phrase, so it's acting as the object. So it's a gerund. And then lastly, in a positive. In a positive, here's the definition. Make sure you type that out. And a positive is a noun or a noun phrase that renames the noun right next to it, and most of the time it's surrounded by commas. Brady's profession, advertising, is very competitive. My verb is. Profession is my subject. Advertising is renaming profession. So that is a verbal. More specifically, it's a gerund because it's a noun. It's acting as in a positive. Okay, there's going to be a part 3, and then that's going to be it. So here we go.